genuinely never thought I would ever review this story. Greetings, people of the internet. My name is Matt, and this is Doctor Who Online. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about this Doctor Who Fury from the Deep. Now, the big question is, am I going to be reviewing the animation, or am I going to be reviewing the story itself? The answer is yes. This is just such a weird sensation, because if someone had asked me about, I don't know, even 10 years ago, that, do I ever think that we would actually be sitting down and watching Fury from the Deep, I would have said, not a hope. Absolutely not a hope. These days, anything is possible. This is what I'm loving about the world of Doctor Who at the precise second. It is full of surprises. Full. So, what do I love about this? The answer is pretty much everything. And again, that is a bold claim, but hear me out. So, what do I love about the story of Fury from the Deep? Well, I'll tell you. It's weird. It is plain, simple, honest to goodness, straight up odd. And that's something that you could say about pretty much any Doctor Who story that's been animated in recent years. They've all been their own entity. They've always been a story that marches to their own beat. They've got their own feel, especially Macrotero and the Faceless ones. There is just no other story like this. Yes, it's a based on the Siege story, but that's a storytelling method, not necessarily the story itself. And I'm going to stick my neck out. I think this is the closest, the absolute closest we are ever going to get to Doctor Who does H.P. Lovecraft. Not sure what I'm talking about? Let me explain. So, the Doctor is up against a seaweed creature that comes from the depths of the sea. That is all we know. We don't know how old it is. We don't know how long it's been there. We don't know who put it there. Is it alien? Is it native to Earth? Is it old? Is it part of deep time? And the connection is that seaweed and tentacles, it's basically this wriggly, deep texture to a H.P. Lovecraft story, as well as Fury from the Deep's got this deep, wriggly texture. And I'm not saying that in terms of a bad joke. It is genuinely something that you cannot understand. For the best part, you cannot actually see, and it comes to get you. That is, in essence, as terrifying as H.P. Lovecraft can possibly get. So, to have it embodied in a Doctor Who completely blows my mind, because when I listened to the audio, ages and ages ago, either on tape or on CD, whichever way that anybody heard it the first time round, and indeed read the target novelisation, you don't quite get the sense. You get the sense that there's something down in the dark, in the depths, but you don't actually get that sense that there is something creeping toward you, it's coming to get you. This does that beautifully. I cannot overemphasize how glorious it actually is. Now, the animation. Slick. It is beautifully done. What is interesting is the fact that they've taken visual cues from the original episode. So they've obviously, someone's looked at certain telesnaps and replicated them in very tiny different ways, but 99.9% of Fury from the Deep is actually a completely original take based on soundtrack alone. And I think that's important, because if you have a very clear idea of what a story looks like in your head, and all of a sudden it turns up in animated form, you are going to expect that. That's perfectly reasonable. I would probably think the same. But if you wanted to make this completely, because we really don't know what Fury from the Deep looks like. We've got telesnaps and there's certain film trims, but it doesn't give you the full sense of how the cameras moved, how everything flowed. So instead of trying to guess and make it look as if this is actually just the canvas script in animated form, they've just basically taken the soundtrack and done what they thought is best in terms of what they've got to work with, and it works so well. But all the distinctive bits are there. Like there's a part in episode 1 where the Doctor, Jamie and Victoria, they're rolling around in the foam, and it's a fun scene. So you can imagine what that would look like, and I think they do it justice. And yeah, I've heard a couple of criticisms about that scene. I can't see what they're talking about. There is a scene in, I think it's episode 6, where the Doctor, Jamie and Victoria are escaping from the nerve centre and, you know, the weed creature, and it's, I don't know what they did in the 60s, I have absolutely zero idea, but what they did in this was just brilliant. What actually happens is that the helicopter in the animation takes off, and it's now literally it's kind of like the asteroid chase in Star Wars. They're going to dodge all these tentacles of seaweed that are coming up out of the sea, and these things are bigger than the rigs itself, and the Doctor's going to try and escape them in the helicopter, and it's weaving, it's ducking, it's diving, it does the loop. It is brilliant. It looks so complicated. How they did that is completely beyond me. I just thought it was so well done. I genuinely loved it. Also, now this is a big thing in terms of the style of the animation. In the original telesnaps, when Robson emerges and he's completely absorbed by the weed creature, the telesnap looks a bit silly because it's basically just the actor playing Robson, just covered in bubble bath. You know, it looks a little bit silly. He does a wonderful job with the voice acting, this deep possessed whispering. But in the animation, they do something way better. He emerges, Van Lutyens emerges, and everybody else that's been absorbed by the creature emerges, and they are now, it's like they're being absorbed by it. You know, it's not just they're covered in seaweed and foam. It's like the seaweed's growing and part of them, and they're all blotchy, and it's like a real physical change. It's a bit like what happens in Seeds of Doom, you know, years later. But it's very hard to articulate. The way that they've done it in this looks 100 times better than it would do in actual televised format, because there's something gruesome about it. There's something really gooey about it, and I just couldn't get enough of that. I was so God. I'm an articulate reviewer, honestly, I really am. And finally, the weed creature. Now, in my head, the weed creature was always one big monster. But in this one, they actually make weed creatures. They actually make actual coming to get you rubber type monsters. They actually look like rubber monsters, but they are so detailed. And I just genuinely love the idea that there was an individual entities, you know, the foot soldiers of the weed creature, and they are themselves weed creatures. So when they're stalking down the corridor, it just looks absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I love the use of colour. Now, I did watch this in black and white, and then I went and watched it in colour. You know, you've got to, otherwise it's rude not to. What I love is other animations in the past have been, I think the colour palette's been a bit bland, you know, possibly a bit disappointed here and there. The colours in this, they are so deep and they are so rich. It's a bit like watching Doctor Who in Technicolor. You know, there's deep reds and there's deep greens, and it's a bit like watching a 50s science fiction B movie. It's got that George Powell deepness in terms of colour. And I just thought it was just the most fantastic effort. And there's certain psychedelic sequences as well, which was 60s, and you know, which was so 60s it was out of sight. It's just absolutely phenomenally gorgeous. It really is. Okay, so that was me reviewing Fury from the Deep. They've done a phenomenal job. If you haven't gone and got this yet, please do. It's on DVD, it's on Blu-ray, it's at HMV, it's on Amazon, it's anywhere that you get these articles of awesomeness. Go and get them, go and watch them, you will enjoy it, you will love it, and they're a wonderful addition to your collection. And something I never actually told anyone else before is that the covers are also reversible, so you can actually have them on your DVD shelf with all the other DVDs that we've already got, and it's awesome. And I'm Matt, and this has been Doctor Who Online.